Okay, good morning, everybody. Bill Lester here on a very dark and dreary and gray, rainy day here at the office. Welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. And joining me today, like normal, is my regular co host, Lily Browning, who is the Hernando County Florida Friendly Landscape Coordinator. Good morning, Lily. How are you?
I'm great, Bill. How are you? Not often have I been called like normal, so I do appreciate that.
Yeah, well, you're pretty normal, I guess. You're normally pretty normal.
Well, that's why you just told me I should write a book about my family's life and
You
history.
should. It would be interesting. Lily's story.
I have new stories for Bill every day. We've known each other, what, 6 or 7 years, and I still entertain him with family stories.
I've been
Past
with
and present.
Extension. It'll be 8 years in
8
November.
years. Okay, so there you
You
go.
know, time flies.
Yes.
And we've been doing the plant clinics for I think over a year and a half at this point, consistently. And I clicked on Facebook just a little while ago looking for something for one of our upcoming events, one of our classes we have coming up here. And you know how Facebook will show you something that you posted a year or two
Yeah,
years
yeah, your
ago.
memories.
Yeah, 2 years ago, we were starting the kids program, the Investigators. The first
Oh,
one, which was
no.
just pre-COVID,
You
and
had
the
in person. Yeah.
TV station came and interviewed me, and I have the video on Facebook, so I'm going to have to share that later on. It's like, oh my gosh, it's been 2 years.
Yes. Need to get back with Nancy and Brittany and see if there's a way to do that. I think we did it virtually again, but there are so many loopholes to. I mean, like protecting children virtually is more difficult than protecting them, in reality, in front of you. I guess because you're there, more so, and you have more control of who gets in. Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
potentially. There's just a lot of planning that goes into it. You wouldn't.
hmm
I mean, we do classes all the time for adults, and we pick the topic,
Right.
we put together what we're going to talk about, but there's a lot more behind the scenes planning that has to go into having
Children.
kids on there and
Yes.
having parental permission.
And we love working with kids. It's just, it gets more difficult. And plus, I think with what the kids have gone through in the past year and a half, with virtual schooling and now back to schooling and all the chaos and the negative energy has to reach them no matter which side, whatever their parents are on. It's like almost asking too much, just let the kids go through what they have to do, and we'll be around to pick up, with educational opportunities when things settle down a little bit more. We can't get in the schools. No volunteers are, allowed in the schools. So we do what we can. Good morning, buddy.
Good morning, buddy. How are you doing?
Raining where Buddy is, I'm sure, but at least he has internet, so it can't be that bad.
Oh yeah, that's right. That storm was hitting up there. I didn't even know it existed till I got the email yesterday afternoon. I told my wife.
Yeah, they were there. It's a pretty low key storm. Yeah.
Hmm. And I noticed last night that it was breezy around here.
Yep.
And we're getting, a little bit of rain right now. So I'm sure that's some of the outflow of the edges
Yep.
has something to do with it.
Yep. Yep. Did you get the pictures I sent you this morning on your email?
Yes, I did. That's in here somewhere. Would you like me to screen share them?
Sure. Because there's something to talk about in them.
Okay.
What I had not even intended to photograph. There was some unwelcome guests in the picture. So with yours as small as it is, it might be hard to see. It's small for me. I don't know if it is for anybody else. They don't have the side. But if you look,
Yeah, I can't make it any bigger.
okay. But you had it bigger a second ago. just rain in Tallahassee, wind and rain along the coastline. You see these two lovely monarchs here. I took a picture of this at the County Extension Native Plant Garden, and I was taking a picture of the monarchs. What I didn't realize until I blew the picture up, and that beautiful monarch, go back to the other one. I was trying to get this mirror image of these two monarchs because I thought that was cool, but look down at the bottom right, and what do you see?
One of those orange things with little black legs.
Yeah, and go to the next picture. There's
And,
less
and the little
washed out.
things on the rear end that looks like a little tailpipe.
And they're right up on the other side of the leaf, sharing that leaf with that monarch. I didn't intentionally take pictures of them. I was taking pictures of the monarchs. What are they, Dr. Lester?
They are aphids. The
So
common
I
name for
should
them.
run out. Should I run out and get some 7 and put all over the?
Well, sure, if you want to
Say
kill
it
the
seriously.
caterpillars also,
Yeah.
the 7 will do a fine job of killing the aphids and the caterpillars and anything else.
So what do I do in this situation where I don't want to kill the monarchs, but is this a bad infestation of aphids? What do I do with this? You know, you have seen a few here. It appears you have a few. What would you do? Yeah. I'll ask you several questions. In this scenario, sure. You only have a few. What would you do?
Nothing.
If it was a scenario where the whole stem was loaded with them, what would you do?
If you had a ton of them, I'd look very closely to see if I had any syrphid fly larvae or ladybug larvae or anything else eating the aphids, which would be a good thing because they're helping to keep them under control. With milkweed, milkweed is such a tough plant that it can withstand caterpillars eating the leaves and aphids sucking the juices out of the leaves and milkweed bugs poking into the seeds and sucking the contents out of the seeds and still get by just fine.
So we should not panic just because there are aphids sharing the buffet with our milkweeds.
Exactly. Milkweed plants can withstand a lot of different things feeding on them and a lot of damage. Generally, plants that are either native to Central Florida or very well adapted here can have a lot of insects on them and not have huge problems. So don't go into a panic because you see a bug on there.
So what type of milkweed is this on? That was your swamp milkweed, wasn't it, I think?
Yeah, well, we do have swamp milkweed out there.
And you have tuberose.
We do have tropical milkweed, I think.
No, you
have a
don't.
couple different kinds here.
You don't, not in your native garden, you don't have tropical milkweed.
Yeah, I wouldn't think
that Alice your gardeners would not do that. No, you have the swamp, I think the perennis, no, incarnata, because it's pink. I want perennis to be pink because it starts with a P, but that won't cooperate with me, so I have to remember the opposite. Incarnata is pink. Tuberosa is the orange, the butterfly weed.
Yeah,
there it is. It's that pink one.
And swamp milkweed is really not the best choice for here at the office or anywhere in Spring Hill, because with the name swamp milkweed, it does really, really well in wet areas. And Spring Hill is not really, most of it is not a wet area. It's pretty high, dry, pine sand hill.
Which is where I don't live in Spring Hill. I live north of there in the Royal. I affectionately call the Royal Highlands, the Royal Drylands from time to time. So
you're generally dry over there too.
But sand hills. But I'm very, very close to the Chassahowitzka Wildlife Management Area. But since it's my friend, I just call it the Chaz. I just go up to the Chaz, and I shoot in the Chaz all the time. And I can do it all year long.
I didn't know you're an avid hunter.
And I can do it all year long too. There's no season for me because I'm shooting with a camera. And lots of tuberosa, growing wild up there, the orange butterfly weed. So that is what I purchase at native plant nurseries. Let me make that clear. I don't take it out of the wildlife management area to put in my yard, because my yard is 3-4 miles, from that area.
Yeah.
So that is the kind I try to have.
Thank you, Jane. And yeah, for anybody who's been watching us for a while, you probably figured out at this point that I don't get too wound up over anything in my yard. Both Lily and I have, what's the term for our lawns? The mixed
diverse lawn areas.
Diverse lawn area, which means half weeds, which I'm very happy with. Mine's half Bahia.
Low growing green stuff. Right? Yeah, low growing green stuff. And to me, a lawn where there is life going on in it is so, I mean, why do you want sterile plants, that you killed every bit of life out of? It's not sustainable. It can't be our future. Things are going to have to change. We're going to have to tolerate these lawns that are mixtures of different plants. Another word for it I've heard is freedom lawns, because you're free from pouring a bunch of resources, meaning out of your wallet, and chemicals and all that, all these inputs. What I always say about Florida friendly, and a lawn can be Florida friendly. Goes back to right plant, right place, but it also goes back to if you are working harder than that plant, then that plant is not a Florida friendly plant. And the same thing can be applied to a lawn area.
Exactly. And as time goes on, when it comes to lawns, and I was visiting a neighborhood manager this morning, I mentioned to her, with watering restrictions, they're not going to change it to let you water more often. No. It's only going to get tighter. Fertilizer restrictions and whatever kind of regulations you may have in your county, it's only going to get tighter. It's not going to get looser. So you need to keep these things in mind and plan now for the future. If you have a lawn or a yard that you're putting way too much fertilizer and way too many chemicals and way too much water on just to keep it alive and looking decent, you're just going to have to look at things differently.
And where I live, there's new houses coming up all the time, up one at a time, boom, 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 boom. But also I am aware of, because, I happen to work here at Hernando County Utilities, so I do become aware through osmosis of different businesses, different communities coming in because they need water. And I happen to be placed in my cubicle in the middle of all the engineering departments. So I overhear stuff, and I know that, not counting the just one by one that are buying the lots up around me, there's going to be 4,000 new homes in the next few years just in 2 different communities that they're developing out there. So, and that's just a taste of what's happening in Florida. And this water is only going to go so far, and you and I just did a program. It's on it's on your playlist of Hernando County Government YouTube, called How Well Is Your Well Water? Even if you're not on a well, if you are, it's great to listen to no matter where you live, just to get, ideas. But we were discussing, my tiny part of it was to make people aware that if you live in Hernando County and you have your own private well, you are still subject to our 1 day a week watering restrictions. Sometimes that's a touchy subject. People get very angry about that because they feel that it's a private well, therefore they can do what they want with it. I've even had people talk to me about water rights. Find that in the paperwork where you bought your house. You're not going to. You don't purchase water rights, in Florida. The water belongs to everybody and nobody. It comes from our aquifer. But also the reason that people with private wells are on watering restrictions is because we are all getting it from the same source. Remember I showed that picture of a glass of water with a whole bunch of straws in it?
Yeah.
We're all taking it from the same place. And also just trying to maintain it and control it, because if we didn't also give these watering restrictions to the people with private wells, what if by some coincidence everyone with a private well decided Friday at 5:30 was the time to put their irrigation on? It's also a matter of trying to even out when that resource is being drawn, so
Yeah.
all those issues together. So not sure how we got on that, but
Not sure either. Here, let me go ahead and share with everybody the link to the Hernando County Government Broadcasting YouTube channel.
there's a link. Yeah, it's not.
Well, I just went to it and got the link. So
it's not. They don't have a friendly URL. I've asked them about that, and they've been like, So,
if you click on that, you'll go to the Hernando County Government Broadcasting YouTube channel, and Lily has her playlist on there, and I have my playlist.
Mine's so much bigger than yours.
We record most of the classes, pretty much all the classes that we do,
yeah,
and get them put back on that YouTube. I have a YouTube. Anything that we do on Facebook Live just gets saved on Facebook. So almost everything we do nowadays gets saved somewhere. And sometimes I have to think about, where did I put that?
Yes.
We just have so many different things in so many different places. Yeah. Where did I put it?
The easier way of finding that is just Google Hernando County Government YouTube. Don't forget the government part, because if you put Hernando County YouTube, there's probably several different people who have, you might look at pretty pictures of Hernando County, but you won't find this, where we're sending you, Hernando County Government YouTube. And also, speaking of that, what I've been doing this week is, since we started virtual classes, we didn't immediately get on YouTube. And for a while, I didn't even have Zoom, and I had to use yours. Remember all that?
Yep.
So there were subjects that I've covered that didn't make it to YouTube. So that is where I'm going back and seeing what they were, to see if I can recover those so they get up on the YouTube channel. So
it's a great resource, whatever applies to you. Like Lily said, we did have that workshop on wells and septic systems. And wells and septic systems are widespread across the entire state of Florida. And most of the information is going to apply to your septic or your well, no matter where you live in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the information is specific to Hernando County, like the watering restrictions, things like that. If you live in another county, you need to check with your county and find out what your restrictions are. Gosh, I have a lot of the different vegetable gardening classes. We have one on growing sweet potatoes. We have one on growing calabaza. And let me throw a plug in here. In 2 weeks, we have a class. Didn't the suggestion about doing a class on vanilla orchids come from a plant clinic?
I don't know.
I think it may have. I think maybe somebody on here suggested a class on growing vanilla orchids, and we have one coming up. Let me go ahead and share the link here.
And vanilla orchids aren't just something ornamental. You literally get the vanilla out of it.
Yes, vanilla, like your vanilla ice cream, or if you go to the store and get the real vanilla extract, comes from bean pods that come off of an orchid. And this vanilla orchid grows into a big vine. So it grows on the ground and naturally climbs up into trees, flowers, and gets the seed pods. When you take the seed pod, for anybody who's a chef out there, you split the seed pod and you kind of scrape the seeds out, and that's vanilla. And do you know what you use to make vanilla extract? Do you know what you put it in to make?
Yeah, we went through this last week. It's
vodka.
Yes. And Buddy says that
always get back to either vodka or insect poop, one or the other, every single week, I think. I don't know why.
Buddy said that was his idea. Don't know if it can work in Tallahassee.
Oh, yeah. Now, Buddy, you get a little bit colder up there. I'm sure that if you get creative and think outside of the box, you can do it up there. But these are somewhat tropical orchids, and they can't stand freezing temperatures, snow, things like that. if you have a greenhouse, if you have a way to keep them warm, it could work. I'm not the expert on it, but I did get the expert, University of Florida's Dr. Alan Chambers, who is working with commercial growers in South Florida to find, because they've never really inventoried all the different varieties of vanilla orchids. They're all known by orchid collectors and backyard growers, and they give them all kinds of different names, but they've never looked at the genetics, the DNA, and figured out, okay, this variety grows great and this one not so well here in Florida, to kind of narrow things down to which ones would be successful here. And they're looking at commercially growing them in South Florida, which is great for growers down there.
Sure, yeah.
Extra source of income.
Right, and more local. And every time as long as it's something that that can grow here without a whole lot of carbon footprint, then if you can buy it here, then you lessen your carbon footprint as well.
Exactly. We have so many different things that people, years ago really generally didn't grow, that they're finding can grow here, and they're working to see if commercial people want to grow it. And homeowners, olives are another good.
Yeah.
People grow olives here in Florida now. And a lot of varieties don't do well, but a lot of them do.
Mm-hmm.
And researchers are looking through all of them, growing all of them, and they go like, oh, that one grows great, and that one died really fast. We're not going to recommend that one. But Jane pulls the conversation right back to, she has a bottle of Grey Goose with 10 vanilla pods just waiting for me. She put it up 3 weeks ago. She also has vanilla orchids climbing on her olive tree outside. See, this all ties together today.
Oh, she's got a food forest.
And she's gotten flowers, but not the seed pods yet. Can't wait for them.
Can't wait for the course, the next time she finished. Maybe there was some of that vodka.
Is she talking about she can't wait for the vanilla pods
or
the olives? And I have seen people get olives over in, what's the subdivision close to here?
No, by my house.
Silverthorne. I saw a tree in Silverthorne. It was about 4 years old, and it had olives on it.
There's an olive grove near my house. Maybe that should be a class too on how to grow olives. And I believe
we'll do olives.
Assuming they're still operating, I don't know for sure. You could buy an olive tree from them, and then when you finally get the fruit, you can take it back to them to be pressed into olive oil.
Yes. Although I saw somebody on Facebook, and they were in Central Florida, maybe even Hernando County, and they had an olive tree, and they got olives, and what do you have to do to them? You don't pickle them. You process them.
Process them, yeah.
You have to, and I can't remember exactly what you have to put them in there with. Some pretty tough ingredients to actually, because you can't pick an olive off the tree and eat it, you'll break a tooth. So you have to process it, and they did, and they said they were great. So it is possible.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure.
I know that you have olive expert, and Dr. Strickland and I went to school with her. She went into entomology now.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll get her to speak on olives. UF's been doing a lot of work with them.
That would be cool. And I was just thinking who you should have as a guest here, since we're all, alcohol is a favorite subject here. Have Matt come and talk. Last week we mentioned there are hops growers. Are they here or are they in Pasco?
Oh no, they're here in Hernando.
Okay.
And I've never been to their farm, but they're only a few miles away from here at the office.
So that's a new fun experiment too. Like you said, with all the craft breweries and everything that's, that the new generation likes now. Growing hops could be a very financially lucrative thing to do.
Is because that was like the one ingredient that was missing with all the people in Florida that are starting the small craft breweries. If you wanted to make an all Florida beer, but you're having to get your hops from Oregon, that's not Florida friendly, Florida homegrown.
Hmm.
So, and apparently this little farm, it's I think the largest in Florida, and they're doing very well. And people make their own beer. You can make your own beer at home. I know
Yeah,
people make wine. I don't know how difficult it is to make beer,
just
but you
need
have
the
to
right
make.
ingredients. Yeah.
So Lily, if you're making beer out in the garage, you're going to need hops.
Okay.
So keep that in mind.
Sometimes they explode, though, I think.
The hops or the beer or the still.
Something, and I know the wine explodes too if you don't do it right.
Well, yeah, because you are dealing with yeast and fungi, and it does
Mhm.
spin off gas as a byproduct. And if things aren't vented that have to be vented,
Right.
things could go kaboom. So
Yes. Can you do it in a garage here, or is it too hot? You'd have to have
it might get too hot. I mean, you can
would you have to have a
air condition
temperature?
your garage, or at least ventilate it, at least keep the temperature reasonable.
Yeah, okay. Because I know up north they would just do that in basements.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Jane, I'm not sure how far south in Florida you can grow hops. I'm no
That's
expert
why
on
we
it.
have to bring Matt in.
Yes, we do. I know that hops are traditionally grown north of here, where the days are very long during the summer and become even shorter during the winter. And it's the days getting shorter that triggers them to grow and flower and make little hops. That's why traditionally the best hops always came from Germany. But here in the US, they grow them commercially in Oregon, probably Michigan,
Washington, maybe.
probably Washington, northern states like that. So looking at it, growing it in Florida was a real mystery. They're like, we don't know if they're going to grow here or not. So they had to try a whole bunch of different varieties to find ones that would do well here, because the day lengths are different in Florida than they are up north.
And then Matt can also tell us about that other product that people are experimenting with growing. Experimenting being
Yes,
the key word there.
Matt is our Central Florida district representative and expert on the production of CBD products. And he keeps up to date on the newest research with that. Gosh, I need to bother him again and find out if we're allowed to have classes on that topic yet or not.
What I found interesting when I heard him speak to a advisory committee is that the hemp's reaction to stress, maybe too much water, not enough, whatever, climate conditions, is to raise their levels of THC. And there are inspectors who, keep a very close eye on that. So if the levels get too high, they have to destroy the crop by burning it. Whole neighborhood comes around. No, I don't know.
That's a very difficult area and very difficult to manage.
Right.
Because keep in mind, the people who are growing it, the people who got permits to grow it and are growing it, have to send it out to be tested on a pretty regular basis to find out what the THC levels are.
Mm-hmm.
I know the person who developed the test for Florida Department of Agriculture, and he said you can only run a few tests a day because it gets really sticky and gummy and nasty. You have to break everything down and scrub it clean. That was the same person who used to be in charge of the air potato patrol or the air potato breeding program up in Gainesville. Mm-hmm. He developed, believe it or not, the CBD, the THC test. So getting all of those samples tested and making sure that they're within range and not too high. Mm-hmm. And if you have one batch that measures too high, if you mix it with another batch that measures real low, Does it balance out? I don't know. I'm not involved in that. And thankfully,
Right.
there's certain areas that I'm really glad I don't have to be involved with. That's a tough one. Growing zoysia grass, that's a nightmare. For anybody listening who lives in Hernando County, please don't get zoysia grass for your lawn because I don't want to have to answer questions on it.
Where do you see zoysia grass? I don't see that.
I just threw that in there because I mentioned that at the subdivision I was at today.
Oh,
I'm
they
so
ran
glad
it.
you guys didn't switch to zoysia here. If you had, I would not have returned. I would have returned the phone calls, but I would not have been happy about it. It can be a very, very difficult grass to grow. You have to do everything right.
They have it in the villages.
Yeah, God bless them. I'm so glad that I don't have to go answer their questions or look at their lawns.
And the thing about zoysia grass, it's fine. It's nice. I mean, literally fine. You know, I'm not saying it's fine. It's literally fine blades. And so it looks like up north, like, ooh, I could stick my toes in there. But it needs as much water, if not more, than St. Augustine. Interesting enough, we preach continuously mowing high. Some of the zoysia grasses have to be mowed low, or they don't work correctly. Well, there's only one type that you can use a normal everyday mower on, right? The Empire.
Yeah.
Every other zoysia turf needs a reel, REEL mower. So like special equipment. But the Empire, you can use a regular mower on. But also, like, in the next 2 weeks, it's going to go brown just because it's like the first thing to turn kind of brownish in the winter. So that's an aggravation as well. As soon as it starts smelling pumpkin spice, it turns brown.
It's the first to turn brown in the fall and the last to wake up and turn green in the spring. If you let it get too dry during this, spring and summer, like we have a long dry period, you don't water it, it just gets too dry, it goes into dormancy again and turns brown. And you have to get it to wake up and turn green all over again.
And brown lawns in the villages do not make people happy.
Yeah, because they don't have the diversified turf areas like we do. They have to have perfect lawns. And that's one gargantuan HOA there. And
I have heard, though, there is more and more and more people springing off of Mr. Turnipseed's yard, who he was probably the first one to design. He's a landscape designer, and I did not make his name up. That's his name. A native plant, 100% native plant yard, full approval of the HOA. We went through all his architectural review boards. He did everything you're supposed to do. It looks beautiful. You and I have been there. And it started a little tiny mini revolution there. And I have heard there are more and more and more people going to native plant yards and Florida friendly. So,
after you've had to replace a large St. Augustine lawn several times to the tune of several $1,000s, depending on how large your yard is, each time you start to think a little bit more about, maybe I'm not on the right track. What can I put here other than St. Augustine again and have it die again? So you start looking at increasing the size of flower beds, putting in carefully planned out position mulch, small rock areas, more plantings, more native plants that you don't have to mess with a lot. And all that becomes a lot more attractive after you're done writing a check for your second or third or fourth time you've had to replace a lawn. Because I get to talk to the people who have had to do that, and they're generally not very happy after a couple of times.
So tell the exciting news. You don't have to use the name of the community about, where UF has been working the past year or two, what you did, and then, some good news you may have heard this morning too.
Yes, well, here with University of Florida Extension in each county, we work with county government, we work with neighborhoods, homeowners associations, city governments, and we have been working with one large subdivision here in Hernando County. In the past, they had a rule where you had to have St. Augustine for at least the front yard. I think you could have Bahia in the backyard, but you had to have St. Augustine in the front. And their lawns started dying.
And they caught the attention of Hernando County Utilities because of their water use.
Yes, they used huge amounts of water. Part of that was because they were having to replace lawns so often. When you replace a St. Augustine lawn, you have to give it a lot of extra water for a bit until it roots and is able to get by on its own. They also had the idea that, you know, if we water a lot, our lawns would all look great and they quit dying. It wasn't a lack of water that was a problem. They have a disease called take-all root rot that they have bad problems with and still have problems with in the neighborhood. So St. Augustine lawns can die very easily if you have that disease. But they thought, you know, if we just fertilize it more and water it more, everything will be great. And they even did that, and things weren't great. The last I heard was they had to budget $1 million to replace lawns this past year. And you know who got to pay for that? The people who live there and their HOA fees, and they weren't really happy about it.
So you can have unsustainable green squares in your yard.
Yes, and we worked with them, and we worked also with the Southwest Florida Water Management District, who is the water management district that covers Hernando County. And they put in some grant money, and we took 4 yards in their neighborhood and redid the turf and the landscaping with Bahia grass and Florida-friendly landscaping, and increased the size of the flower beds and decreased the size of the lawn. So they still have grass, just not as much grass. Everything looks great, and they are so happy with it. They're in the process of working towards converting more yards there to be like that, because the lawn's not going to have to be replaced every year when you do that, and it looks good, so it keeps the residents happy.
Bahia grass, as when we were in a meeting with them, as my boss mentioned, you water Bahia grass once a week, it's going to stay looking, you know, pretty good. I have classes in which I talk about Floratam and I talk about Bahia. And then I say, what are you looking for? You know, if you are looking for low maintenance, mowing only, this is the kind of St. Augustine grass you're going to have. This is the kind of Bahia grass you're going to have. If you're looking for medium, and here's the things you want to do, this is the kind of Floratam you'll have. This is the kind of Bahia grass you'll have. That middle section is where Bahia is going to do the absolute best. Then I said, if you're willing and want to do all this high maintenance, you're going to have the best Floratam that you can, barring any diseases, but your Bahia will hate you. Do not do the high maintenance with the Bahia. The Bahia's sweet spot is in that middle. On the other hand, it'll look good enough with that low maintenance as well. And that's no watering, like you and I do. The medium is once a week. So,
and unfortunately, in some neighborhoods, what they have been doing is to cut down on the amount of high maintenance St. Augustine. They tell people, or even when they build the houses, they put St. Augustine in the front, they put Bahia in the back. Because everybody driving down the street sees the front, and Bahia in the back is going to be lower maintenance. The problem is Bahia and St. Augustine get cut at different heights, totally different fertilizer regimes, totally different irrigation regimes, and if you're using any kind of chemical weed killer or any other treatment on them, totally different chemicals you're using on it. So unless you know that, and you know, if you have a service that's just going to put the same thing on the front and the back, that starts to cause problems. That can turn into a real nightmare.
Backyards are surrounded by other people's backyards and their buildings and everything. So you're putting Bahia grass in the shadiest part of your yard when it needs to be in the sunniest part.
Yeah.
And then they say, oh, it just all died back there.
Yeah, so I know that we get a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails, and we go and talk to people in neighborhoods, and I see a lot of dead grass. And all kinds of different things can kill grass.
Sure.
I've seen a little bit of everything.
Back to that zoysia grass, it has its own diseases. What's it have?
Zoysia can get takeoff,
Can it?
and
But it also
zoysia can get
has brown patch disease,
brown patch.
and its bug du jour is hunting bill bug.
Hunting bill bug,
They're
which is a
ugly.
beetle. And I don't have one in my collection. I
Oh.
need to ask Lisa about that. I thought Lisa was going to get me one. She's agent over in Sumter County, and she deals with the villages.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. I need to ask either her or Norma to get me one for my collection. Because we generally don't have any hunting bill bugs here in Hernando. And we do have some zoysia lawns here. Very few. They're not putting any in the Royal Highlands in the new construction.
Oh gosh, no.
No, I really haven't
Almost
seen
all Bahia out there. They're smart enough, at least in our Sandy area, unless the homeowner, it's more of a custom build, and
Yeah.
they demand the St. Augustine. But yeah, just the builders out there in general are just putting out Bahia, but they're putting it over crap soil. So
Yeah, crap soil and fill dirt.
yes.
And you don't know what's in that soil or what's not in that soil. And I have to read and answer questions for people about their soil tests, and I see some really unusual numbers. Some of the most unusual ones are from the Royal Highlands, some of that new construction of fill dirt out there.
Right.
I don't know where the heck they got it from.
We need to do a class on renaturalizing the soil in your yard. Because when you get a house built, you're not on any kind of native soil by any means. They have clear cut the lot. Then they have brought in, Florida's topsoil is what, 2 to 3 inches,
Yeah.
And so they have brought in something from a drainage retention area that they dug out somewhere, or some kind of project. So it's, for deep earth sand, basically, and, level out your lot with it, put your house there, build it up. Then they just throw a lawn and some generic landscape on it and say, okay, now live. And it's like putting it over a sandbox, or it's just sterile. And then people wonder why they have any issues. Now, Bill and I know the University of Florida is doing a lot of research in Marion County on top of the world, mixing in compost with that fill dirt. If it's too late for that, you can always top dress with it once a year or so, like a fertilizer. Adding mulch, just basically adding organic material back to that fill dirt that they gave you, and go around and dig. My house has been built for 14 years. I dug up an area to put some lemongrass. I dug up a thing. I don't know what it is. It's some tiny piece of something that went into building the house. Still, 14 years later.
Yeah, the beer cans the construction workers left behind.
Yes, so we ought to do that on renaturalizing the dirt under your feet or something like that. We need to come up with that.
Yeah, we should. And apparently it does over time. You basically create new soil, but it takes, in a lot of cases, 20 years for that to happen.
And sometimes it's because you've gone through 5 dead lawns that added organic material.
Yeah. So top dressing with compost, and it could be bags of black cow manure, bagged mushroom compost, both of which you can get at big box stores, homemade compost, whatever it might be. Spreading that lightly over your, especially St. Augustine lawn, is fantastic. Lawns absolutely love that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a long term. It's not one and done. You got to do it a bunch of times.
But if you have just recently built a house and wondering why, you're feeling guilty or something that your landscape isn't making it, I just told you why. So don't feel that bad about it.
Yeah, we get all those questions, and gosh, I guess with more new construction, we're going to get even more questions about those things. So for anybody who isn't aware, we offer a lot of virtual online classes between Hernando County Extension and Lily Browning with the Florida Friendly Landscape program here in Hernando County. And the best way to find out what kind of classes we have coming up and all the details, whether it's on Zoom or Facebook or you got to register or not, and the day and the time, just go to Hernando Extension, all one word, .com. And you don't have to be a member of Facebook. It's not YouTube. It's just a freestanding web page that has the most up-to-date list of all the different classes we have coming up. And it's a great way to find the details, the links, the days, the times. Don't ask me off the top of my head what I have coming up, because I generally don't remember without checking my schedule.
I have next week Florida's Fabulous Fall Color. It'll be on Wednesday at 10, which is my normal time, but it's going to be pre-recorded. So there won't be any live participants. But, that's always an interesting class. And that's one of the ones I went back. I'm like, why wasn't this on YouTube? I know I did it last year. And then I actually found it. I found the Zoom recording. Mm-hmm. And even though the class went very well, the recording itself did not. There were technical difficulties. I'm like, oh, that's why I never put it up.
Yeah, Zoom doesn't record the best. I'm not. Really
so it's time for a redo. So I may or may not have a guest helping me. Not quite sure of his schedule yet. But either way, it's going to be up at 10 o'clock. Don't worry, it's not you, Bill. He looks a little panicked for
my schedule, I don't think.
That's not on my calendar. No, we have classes coming up together, though. The 22nd, we have favorite plants of Florida pest insects. So that'll be fun, too. You look like you're doing that for the first time.
We have the vanilla class coming up.
Yes.
So go to HernandoExtension.com. You do have to register in advance for that, but it is free. And I think as of this morning, I haven't checked, but I probably have 100 people register for that already.
Nice.
So good topic. Everybody wants to grow their own vanilla. And you know what?
I think people are interested in sustainability and doing more at home and in new and trending ways of doing things too. So, but join me or watch the recording next week of Florida's Fabulous Fall Color. We do have fall. Bill and I have been here a long time. And eventually, just because fall doesn't slap you in the face and say, I'm here and I'm beautiful, you begin to see the signs. And you begin to see the signs, and the plants know, the different plants that are blooming. And so, okay, we can't have the traditional way that we had fall color up north, but you can improvise and bring in plants that bring in those colors and just open your eyes to the beautiful things like the beautyberry and the purple lovegrass and all that is,
Sure, there are things that flower heavily in the late summer. Goldenrod, saltbush.
Saltbush is usually more in the winter, I think.
No, saltbush is fall.
Okay.
Because there's a lot over around the nursery.
All right, yeah.
The fields there.
Yes. And you said the purple lovegrass, the different types of
muley grass.
Yes, muley grass, but what's that yellow flower?
Goldenrod.
Flower.
Ragweed.
It's a composite flower.
Daisy.
Yeah, it looks like a daisy. I can't remember it now. Aster, some kind of aster.
Oh, Elliot's aster?
I think that might be it. That grows in the fall. Yes.
Yeah, that flowers in the fall.
Yes.
And it disappears for most of the year. You'll totally forget that you have some growing, and then in the fall, boom, it'll come up and it'll flower.
Yep. you know what Jim Mull from Pasco County calls, why I couldn't bring up the name, what he learned in college for all the different asters and the daisies and stuff. They just would be, because they had to ID them. So the students would call them GYCs, which for this purpose, I'll say darn yellow composites. That's what
Yes, there's a lot of them, but those are great wildlife flowers because I know insects
absolutely,
and butterflies love them.
Mm-hmm. Well, they'll make an appearance in my class, and I'll have their real name by then. So, Stokes aster? That could be what I'm looking for.
Stokes
Yeah.
aster is different.
Okay. I have it in my
Yeah.
yard.
Lee coleus are colorful too,
Yep.
and they're colorful year round.
Uh-huh.
So there's plenty of stuff you can put in to add some fall color.
Oh, yeah.
And for anybody who enjoys annuals, in the fall is when you want to put in your pansies, petunias, and snapdragons.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the three that here in Central Florida take cold weather.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to get a frost, and they do just absolutely great. And Carol is in Pinellas County, south of here, and she has great luck with climbing asters.
That's what they are. Thank you.
Okay.
You know, Carol, when you get a certain age, sometimes things just disappear from your brain. So,
It happens. Okay, guys, if anybody has any quick last-minute questions, time to toss them in there real quick. And here's a very good question for you, Lily. Will coleus grow in a garden that is mostly in shade?
I think coleus likes more like partial shade, partial sunny. If it's too shady, it will get very lakey.
Yeah, in
If it's too
full
sunny,
shade, it gets
it'll get,
flaky.
yeah, if it's too sunny, it'll fade out. Gotta find that half and half.
Yeah, speckly shade is good for coleus, and it's perfect for azaleas
Mm-hmm.
and impatiens also, and caladiums. So if you have a pretty shady yard or area in your yard, you got a lot of choices out there for what you can do. And you've had classes on growing things in the shade before, right?
And that's another one that's coming up soon because it didn't make it to Zoom. Yeah, the shady side of your landscape. Coleus is one of those great, I call them grandma plants, because they're pass-along plants, and everyone's grandma had that, and they all gave them to their friends and put them in a little pot for you to take to college, and then it died. But then now you have,
Yeah.
but now you do still have a piece
Christmas
of it.
cactus or something.
Yes, or Swedish ivy or something like that. Coleus, shrimp plants, impatiens, all of those.
And Jane asked earlier about any hydroponic information on YouTube. Yes, we have had classes in the past on
Yeah, I'm pointing at
hydroponic.
you. There you go.
So, Jane, if you want to shoot me an email, and there is my email address, I'll look them up and I'll send you the links. We've done that several times in the past. We have one that we did on Facebook, and we have a couple part one that we did through Zoom. And it would take me a few minutes to dig up all the links on YouTube. Like I said, they start to pile up after a while, and it's like, I know I got that somewhere. Where is that? You have to,
And you actually have, you and I have done a whole bunch of classes, so don't just look at the UF IFAS one. If you're looking for Dr. Lester, look through mine, even though I have like 56 or something there now. A whole lot of them are collaborations between you and I.
Exactly. And here, let me go ahead and put my YouTube on here, which is a wealth of past virtual plant clinics, classes. This is where the hydroponics
You have your email there.
classes exist also. This is where they live.
Okay.
So that's in the comments.
Mhm.
Most of the comments, depending on how you're watching us today, I'm not sure if it shows up in your comments or not.
We'll put it on the banner to make sure they see it.
Okay. But yeah, if you ever have questions about those links or how you would find any of our classes, just shoot me an email. We'll send you the links. Very easy to just email it back to you. With YouTube, you can sign up to get notified when we post something new on that. So go ahead and do that. Follow both of us, all of us on YouTube. And that way you know when we put a new class up. And like I said, we record pretty much everything now and get it up there.
Okay. I may have a picture for you next week, since you were talking about my family history. This is my family future. I might have a picture for you next week. Tomorrow, got a new family member coming, so a great-grandchild.
I was going to say, what kind of family member? I was going to make you say it.
Yeah, I know, you were.
Well, congratulations, Lily. Hopefully everything will work out just fine.
Yes.
Everything will proceed.
Good vibes for my daughter, my granddaughter, please, and my great-grandson should be here by tomorrow. So
that's great. You're going to have to show pictures here on one of the plant clinics
of our little star.
There you go. So on that note, I think we're about done here today. We will be back again next Thursday at 10 a.m. And I promise you that I'll have some kind of guest to bring on here next week.
You say that every week.
I know, and then I get behind, and then before you know it, it's Wednesday, and it's like, oh, I haven't asked anybody yet. I have a number of different people who I can ask, so I'm not sure who's going to be free next week.
You said afraid.
Free and afraid. They're all afraid to do this the first time. It's like, I've never done. What is that, StreamYard? And,
and then they do it, and as soon as we turn it off, you know what every one of them says? Well, that was fun.
That was fun. That was easy.
Yeah.
Because I just send them a link. I say, here, click here, and I'll let you in the room. Make sure you have a camera and a microphone that works, and that's good. You're good.
Yeah.
But I can't answer all the different questions. That's okay.
Just like if they came into the extension office and asked you, sometimes you may say, I have to get back to you. So.
Well, we have Master Gardener volunteers that help here at the office, and they were a little concerned, and they wanted some kind of training about how to tell people when you can't answer a question. I'm thinking, well, that's pretty easy to do. Just do what I do. People will walk into the office and they'll bring in a plant. I don't have a plant sitting here. They'll bring in a plant and they'll kind of stick it in my face. What's this? And I go like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. I'll send pictures to the herbarium. I'll call somebody. I'll ask Lily if it's a tree question. There's a Facebook group that a lot of the experts from around the country are on. I'll put the tree pictures up there. We'll get an answer to it, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
And that's the thing, no one person can have all the answers, but that's the great collaboration of the University of Florida. I mean, that is what they were created for. An agent of the University of Florida is supposed to represent that university in their county, and therefore you have resources to all those great minds up there. So somebody knows the answer.
Exactly. We'll find the person that knows. It might take a little bit, but we'll find them eventually. So,
and they are not on your neighborhood Facebook group, most likely.
Yes. So on those happy notes, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you here again next week, Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Hopefully it'll be a little bit sunnier outside, or I'm going to have to get a ring light. It looks like I'm in a coal mine here at my office. And yes, I'll have to get a ring light like Lily has there.
We're giving away our secrets.
But hey, thanks again, everybody. And we will see you again next week. Thanks, Lily.
Okay. All right. Thanks.